Alright, welcome back. So, let's just talk a little bit about subgraphs. Subgraphs are a much more easier way to doing things, especially if you want to add a lot of complicated procedures. So in the last video, we talked about PBR and how to get everything connected, and with my broken scroll wheel, there you go, how to get everything connected into our main material. Alright, now let's say, for example, other than that, we wanted to have two materials and then lerp with the mask to get some kind of cool effects. Now, what we can do is we can just copy and paste and then get a whole new group and do it again, but it would look messy or it will look weird. So what we can do is we can what we call export the work to another program, and then we can just click and drag it here and it can do it for us. So that would be the subgraph. So in my case, let's go back to the PBR and we have everything stuck here. And what we can do is inside over here, we can just right click create and we can create a subgraph, and I can just call it underscore PBR. Alright, and then when I open it, we have two options. We got the inputs and the outputs. So if we click in here and we click on, let's say, a variable, let's just click on like 4 or 5 inputs. Alright, and each input is different. We can have, let's say, a float or a texture or anything. And then over here, what we can have is an output where we can do specific expressions and then we can bring it out. Right, good enough. So when we save it, right, and let's just go back in here. That was just an example. So let's just click and drag it right here, the whatever we made, and if you go inside here, you can see that we have the for variable and the variable out that we get from inside our graph. Alright, so that makes a few things easier. What it does is now all we have to do is get variables inside our main shader or inside our graph, and we just have to connect it, and then afterwards just connect everything else into the material. So in other words, what we could do is we could outsource all this into a subset and we could just connect it here. And for basis of time, I do have it here. I'm just going to move it back inside here, and I'm just going to click and drag it right here so you can see it, and it chooses the same things that we had before, right? The albedo, color, normals, roughness, displacement, offset, and height that we all have here, and then it returns the main stuff that we had before. Alright, and if you go inside, it's the same thing, and what we have is we have two inputs. When you click on input, it gives off two positions. One is the default, which we just put as these as default, and the other one is just this. If we remove this, it would just do its own default, but this is just to be clear and concise, and it's doing the exact same thing, sending it as an out. So now when I close in here, go inside here, what we can do instead is we could take all these textures that we had and the colors and the ramps and just connect it here. So let me do that and delete everything else. Alright, so now after saving it, oops, looks like I made one little mistake, and that is on the, where are you? The normals. Right here. Alright. So after doing that, we now have a simple little node that takes everything that we need and does it. So now let's say we wanted something more advanced. So let's say we needed a lerp between A and B on a gradient or something, right? Or a lerp between factors. So what we can do is we can press plus and we can choose a group, and I'm just going to call it material. Now that we have the material, we can literally put everything inside it. Now there are two factors I don't actually kind of do need it. So just click on everything else and just press the up button so it gets connected into the material 1 by 1. Once you're done with that, just click on the material itself and just press clone, and now we have a second set of materials. So what we can do is just click and drag everything else and then create another basic PBR, and now we have two of them, and then we can lerp or we can do something else. So this is a workflow which makes it a lot more easier, a lot more what we call faster, and a lot more nicer. So now with the group itself, let's just show it in here. As you can see, now we have something called material, and then we can create another one and another one and another one, and we can just keep on reusing this without having any problems. Alright, so that's the basics of SubGraphs. They're basically outsourcing workflow, so it's a lot more easier to understand when you read things in the main node workbase. Alright, so that's the basics of SubGraph. I will see you guys next time. Alright, goodbye.